"You don't belong here," Vincent Cole barked, his voice slicing through the quiet lobby like a whip. Jordan Hayes paused at the gate, his sneakers silent against the polished concrete floor, his hands relaxed at his sides, not a hint of hesitation in his posture. The private security team shifted uncomfortably, murmurs weaving through the tight cluster of guards, eyes darting to each other for confirmation, none daring to break the growing tension. Jordan's plain black t-shirt and dark jeans made him invisible to most of the world, just another traveler. Yet his calm radiated authority that no badge or uniform could replicate. He approached the checkpoint, ID in hand, but Vincent refused to look, his smirk betraying both skepticism and impatience. "We need clearance verification before anyone passes," he said, the words flat, rehearsed, like they had been repeated hundreds of times without question. Around them, the air was thick with expectation, the kind that made every small sound echo, from a pager beep to a shuffled step. A junior officer near the corner shifted, his phone hidden in his palm, fingers tapping lightly, as if instinctively capturing evidence of the scene unfolding. Jordan didn't speak, didn't argue, didn't even glance at Vincent, instead letting his eyes hold the room, calm, steady, commanding in a way that drew all focus to him. A light flickered overhead, the subtle hum of the gate's systems punctuating the silence, and in that stillness, it was clear that every assumption made about Jordan was about to be challenged. Vincent leaned forward, hand outstretched toward Jordan's ID, a motion meant to assert control, to remind him who supposedly held power here. Yet Jordan's gaze met his without flinching, quiet defiance radiating through every line of his posture. The murmurs grew. One officer whispered under his breath, "Who is this guy?" And another nodded subtly, glancing toward the security monitors as if waiting for confirmation that Jordan's presence was legitimate. Time seemed to stretch in the lobby, seconds stretching like hours, the tension building with a rhythm only noticed by those trapped in the space. Jordan's hand lifted slowly, almost imperceptibly, a gesture so subtle it could have been missed, and in that small motion, a ripple moved through the group, screens blinking to life as internal verification systems acknowledged his authority, confirming what his comm had already suggested. He was no ordinary passerby. The shift in the room was instantaneous, palpable, as Vincent's confidence faltered, his smirk twisting into uncertainty, the guards around him stiffening, unsure where the lines of authority now truly lay. Jordan's lips curved into a faint, controlled smile, and in a voice low but cutting, he finally spoke. "I am Jordan Hayes, owner of Orion Enterprises. You're standing in my space." The words hung in the air, heavy and undeniable, and the collective breath of the room seemed to pause, every eye on him, every body frozen as realization set in. The junior officer's camera tilted slightly, capturing the scene, capturing the moment, and outside, the world would only begin to understand the magnitude of what had just occurred, leaving the room suspended on the edge of revelation, a story about to unfold far beyond the boundaries of this private gate. The room had fallen into a heavy silence, the air thick with tension as Vincent Cole and his team stared at Jordan Hayes, unsure how to respond to the declaration of authority. Their expressions shifted from smugness to uncertainty, every movement tentative, every breath measured. Jordan remained motionless, his presence commanding attention without a single raised voice. A faint hum from the security systems filled the quiet moments, confirming through internal channels that his credentials were valid, his clearance absolute, and his authority unchallengeable. The junior officer who had been recording adjusted the angle of the camera slightly, capturing the reactions of the guards and the subtle shifts in their posture. One by one, the security team members glanced at the monitors, reading the confirmation of Jordan's ownership, their confidence waning with each passing second. Marcus' calm energy radiated through the space, drawing the eyes of everyone present, and the murmurs began to rise as whispers of recognition spread through the room. "He is the owner?" someone asked under their breath, barely audible, yet the question hung in the air like an accusation against their own assumptions. Jordan's gaze swept across the team, sharp but composed, silently communicating that any further hesitation would only reflect on them. He took a measured step forward, the polished floor reflecting the subtle shift in his posture, a movement so deliberate it carried weight beyond its size. The junior officer continued filming, knowing instinctively that the unfolding scene was far more than routine gate security. Jordan raised his hand just enough to activate his internal verification protocol, sending a flurry of alerts across the network, the soft beeps and blinking lights signaling the immediate recognition of his status. Vincent's eyes widened slightly, a flicker of apprehension replacing his earlier certainty, and he glanced at his colleagues, seeking reassurance that no one seemed able to provide. The subtle tension in their shoulders, the faltering smirks, the hesitation in their gestures all confirmed the silent acknowledgment of his power. Guests nearby began to shift in their positions, sensing the growing imbalance of authority, their eyes curious, some pulling out phones, capturing fragments of what they knew would soon become a story. Jordan's breathing remained calm, even, a steady rhythm against the undercurrent of anxiety surrounding him. He lowered his gaze to the floor for a brief moment, recalling previous moments when his presence alone had been questioned or dismissed, and the memory fueled a quiet intensity that now settled over the room. As he lifted his eyes again, the weight of decades of experience, achievement, and unspoken power seemed to emanate from him, transforming the space. Conversations faltered, whispers ceased, and every observer, whether security personnel or casual bystander, felt the undeniable authority that Jordan Hayes carried effortlessly. The quiet realization settled in. The situation was no longer about a gate or a clearance check. It was about the misjudgment of a presence that had always commanded respect and the immediate consequences of underestimating it. Even as the room held its breath, the unfolding drama promised that the next moments would completely overturn the assumptions of everyone involved, leaving nothing unchanged. Jordan Hayes shifted his weight slightly, scanning the faces of the security team as the soft hum of the verification system continued to pulse through the lobby. Every subtle movement from him carried a weight that none of the guards could ignore, a quiet authority that seemed to expand and fill the room. Vincent Cole stepped back, uncertain, his confident stance faltering as he realized that the checklists and protocols he relied upon held no power against the simple truth of Jordan's presence. The junior officer continued filming, the glow from the phone casting a soft light across Jordan's composed expression, capturing the mix of disbelief, tension, and dawning respect on the faces of everyone around. Jordan's gaze swept slowly from one end of the checkpoint to the other, pausing on those who had doubted him most, his eyes steady, calm, yet unyielding, as if silently instructing them to recognize the mistake they had made in underestimating him. The lobby seemed to hold its breath, the polished concrete floors reflecting the subtle movements of both the security team and Jordan, the stillness making the air feel almost tangible. Whispers began to ripple through the smaller staff members, questions asked in hushed tones, curiosity mingling with admiration and a hint of fear. He really is the owner? The confirmation alerts on the monitors continued to blink, each one reinforcing Jordan's authority and widening the gap between expectation and reality. His hand lifted, not to command, but simply to signal the activation of further verification protocols, the quiet sound of the interface acknowledging his instructions filling the space in lieu of any verbal confrontation. Guests in the background leaned forward slightly, some raising their phones to capture moments that felt historic, while others simply watched, mesmerized by the way the entire atmosphere had shifted without a single raised voice from Jordan. Every step he took was deliberate, precise, a dance of calm and control that drew attention yet did not demand it, commanding the room without any outward display of dominance. He allowed a brief pause, letting the weight of his presence settle in the consciousness of those around him, and the subtle shift in posture of each guard, each officer, confirmed the silent acknowledgment of his role. Jordan's expression remained unreadable, a mask of composure, yet within his eyes flickered the sharp intelligence and awareness that had brought him to this moment. The tension slowly eased, not because fear had replaced confidence, but because understanding had dawned on those who had doubted him. This was never about the gate, the ID, or the protocols. It was about recognizing authority, acknowledging respect, and understanding that true power often spoke softly, but carried consequences that could not be ignored. The scene remained suspended in this delicate balance, each second drawn out, each observer caught in the realization that the story unfolding was only the beginning, the first moment in a sequence that would fully reveal the reach and impact of Jordan Hayes' quiet, undeniable power. Vincent Cole's eyes darted nervously to the screens as Jordan Hayes remained perfectly still, his presence unwavering, his posture a quiet assertion of power that seemed to ripple through the lobby without a single sound. The subtle hum of the verification system continued to underscore the tension, each beep and blink a confirmation of Jordan's authority, signaling the undeniable truth of his clearance. The security team exchanged glances, their previous confidence replaced by uncertainty, whispers barely audible beneath the mechanical chorus of the gate. A junior officer shifted from foot to foot, phone still recording, capturing every subtle change in body language, every flicker of hesitation on faces that had moments before seemed unshakable. Jordan's gaze swept the room slowly, deliberate, allowing the weight of his history and accomplishments to settle over each individual, a silent reminder of the experience and capability that no badge or uniform could rival. The lobby felt alive, almost electric, as if each reflective surface absorbed and magnified the tension, every polished tile and glass panel echoing the quiet authority emanating from him. Guests nearby leaned subtly forward, curiosity and awe mingling with disbelief, some lifting phones to record fragments of a scene that felt historic, a moment where assumptions were dismantled without a single raised voice. Jordan took a measured step forward, the floor beneath him reflecting his motion, each movement calculated, precise, a demonstration of calm control that commanded attention without demanding it. The junior officer's camera captured the scene, catching the subtle expressions of Vincent and the team, noting the faltering confidence and shifting postures, the realization slowly dawning that the rules they had enforced so rigidly were irrelevant against the truth of Jordan's position. He lifted a hand slowly, almost imperceptibly, triggering further verification protocols, the soft beeps filling the space with authority, confirming not only his clearance but the futility of resistance. Vincent's expression tightened, a subtle furrow in his brow, and he glanced at the others, seeking reassurance that none could provide. Each breath in the room seemed to stretch, the silence thick with anticipation, yet Jordan remained composed, an anchor in the center of uncertainty. His eyes flicked briefly toward the junior officer, a subtle acknowledgment of the recording, a silent agreement that the story being captured would speak louder than any argument or protest. The whispers among the staff grew, questions asked in hushed tones, a collective recognition beginning to form that the moment was larger than a single security gate or clearance protocol. Jordan's presence alone transformed the space, shifting the atmosphere from confrontation to revelation, the understated power of his demeanor leaving no doubt that authority had a new, undeniable voice. The lobby held this delicate balance, every observer aware that the events unfolding would resonate far beyond this single moment, a quiet yet forceful demonstration of control, influence, and respect that could not be ignored, setting the stage for the next shift in the unfolding story. Jordan Hayes stood perfectly still, letting the room adjust to the presence of authority that had shifted the entire dynamic. The security team members hesitated, the tension palpable, their hands hovering near radios and access panels, unsure of whether to continue enforcing protocols that suddenly felt irrelevant. Guests nearby craned their necks, some discreetly raising phones to capture the scene, their whispers blending into a soft hum that filled the lobby, a soundtrack of astonishment and curiosity. Jordan's eyes scanned the faces before him, not with anger, but with the quiet weight of experience, each glance communicating an unspoken message. Recognition and respect must be given where it is due. The junior officer's camera angle shifted slightly, catching Vincent Cole's subtle tightening of the jaw, the slight narrowing of his eyes as he processed the undeniable truth of Jordan's status. A soft ping from the verification system signaled another confirmation, and Jordan's posture remained unyielding, calm, yet impossibly authoritative. Around the edges of the lobby, other employees and bystanders began to sense the imbalance, the realization spreading that the ordinary rules of procedure were no longer the measure of power in this space. Jordan's hands remained at his sides, movements minimal but deliberate, each subtle gesture reinforcing control and presence without a single word. The polished concrete reflected the light from the ceiling panels, the reflections amplifying the quiet, cinematic tension of the moment, every eye in the lobby following his unassuming yet commanding presence. A small cluster of security personnel shifted nervously, exchanging glances, their confidence eroding as the reality of Jordan's authority became undeniable. The whispers grew more audible. "He is really the owner," one said, barely above a murmur, yet the weight of the statement carried throughout the room. Jordan allowed a brief pause, letting the confirmation alerts on the monitors continue to blink and hum, reinforcing his clearance and emphasizing the futility of resistance. The junior officer adjusted the phone slightly, framing the reactions of the staff and guests, the mix of astonishment, apprehension, and reluctant admiration now clearly visible. Jordan's gaze swept across the space one more time, steady, precise, almost contemplative, as if assessing not just the moment but the entirety of the environment and the people within it. Every subtle movement of his body, every slight adjustment in posture, radiated the assurance that the authority present was absolute, that the misjudgment by those who had doubted him would have immediate consequences, and that the room itself had shifted to recognize that power does not always announce itself with volume, but with presence, patience, and undeniable truth. The tension in the lobby held, not as a moment of confrontation, but as a suspended acknowledgment that Jordan Hayes had irrevocably established control, the quiet force of his demeanor leaving a lasting impression on everyone present and setting the stage for what was about to follow. The lobby seemed to hold its breath as Jordan Hayes took another subtle step forward, his eyes sweeping over the room with precision, noting every shift in posture, every hesitant glance. The junior officer continued to record, hands steady, capturing the mixture of awe and confusion that had settled on the faces of the security personnel. Vincent Cole straightened, attempting to regain composure, but the flicker of doubt in his expression betrayed the cracks forming in his authority. Jordan's calm energy radiated through the space, quiet yet undeniable, compelling recognition from anyone still uncertain of his role. The polished floors reflected the subtle movement of Jordan's shoes as he adjusted his stance, each motion deliberate, conveying confidence without a word. Around him, the hum of monitors and the soft beep of the verification system punctuated the tense atmosphere, confirming his full clearance while highlighting the disparity between perceived and actual power. Whispers began to spread, not loud enough to disrupt the tension, but enough for everyone to feel the shift. "He really is the owner," one officer murmured, another nodding slightly, eyes widening as reality settled. Jordan's gaze moved to the bystanders, the guests who had been quietly observing, some leaning forward, phones poised, capturing the transformation of the moment into a story that would travel beyond the lobby walls. He remained unmoving, yet his presence seemed to grow, a magnetic force that drew attention and respect without demanding it. Each subtle exhale, each careful step, reinforced the certainty that authority did not always need to be loud to be effective. The junior officer's camera panned slightly to catch the changing expressions of the security team, the hesitant acknowledgement, the quiet acceptance, and the flicker of admiration that had begun to replace disbelief. Jordan's hand lifted just slightly, triggering another round of system confirmations, the lights and notifications creating an invisible, undeniable validation of his position. Vincent shifted once more, a subtle gesture of concession, and Jordan's eyes met his, not with judgment, but with the quiet expectation that recognition had been earned. The guests, previously passive, now leaned closer, murmuring among themselves, a collective acknowledgement of the unfolding authority and the subtle yet profound reversal of perceived roles. Jordan remained the epicenter, a calm anchor amidst the swirling uncertainty, demonstrating with every controlled motion and measured gaze that true command came from presence, clarity, and the quiet assertion of identity. The entire space, from the polished floors to the ceiling lights, seemed to mirror the tension and the shift in power, each reflection capturing the balance between anticipation and recognition, a room transformed not by noise, but by the undeniable, steady force of Jordan Hayes' authority, setting the stage for the next unfolding action that would redefine the environment and the understanding of everyone present. The tension in the lobby thickened as Jordan Hayes allowed a brief moment for the realization to settle fully among the security team. Vincent Cole's hands remained close to the console, hesitant, each subtle movement betraying a growing recognition of the authority he had overlooked. Jordan's calm energy was magnetic, drawing the attention of every bystander and staff member, the soft light from the overhead fixtures highlighting the meticulous composure in his posture. A few junior officers exchanged quiet glances, their whispers barely audible, confirming to one another what the monitors had already displayed. Jordan's clearance was absolute, and resistance was futile. Jordan's eyes shifted deliberately to each member of the team, not with anger, but with measured intensity, silently communicating the weight of accountability and the necessity of acknowledgment. The polished floors reflected the precise motions of the guards, their prior confidence replaced by caution and uncertainty, while the hum of verification systems punctuated the quiet like a metronome, marking each second as the team adjusted to the truth unfolding. Guests leaned slightly forward, some subtly capturing the scene on their devices, their curiosity blending with awe as they witnessed a power dynamic being rewritten without a single raised voice. Jordan's presence expanded subtly, an anchor that commanded recognition, a force felt more than seen, and each subtle shift in his stance reinforced the inevitability of the authority he carried. The junior officer's phone tracked every reaction, capturing Vincent's momentary flinch, the hesitations, the tentative steps backward, and the growing realization that they had misjudged the situation entirely. Jordan allowed a small pause, the silence deliberate, giving room for the room to absorb the gravity of what was happening. Every eye locked on him, every person present aware that the ordinary rules of procedure no longer applied in this moment. A soft chime from the security system signaled another confirmation, the subtle electronic cue resonating like a quiet affirmation of Jordan's legitimacy. Whispers rose gently, a mixture of recognition and incredulity, as the staff began to reconcile the discrepancy between their expectations and reality. Jordan's hand lifted just enough to interact with the verification interface, the small motion carrying a gravity that highlighted the contrast between calm authority and rigid protocol. Vincent's lips pressed into a thin line, his posture stiffening as he registered. The irreversible shift in control, and Jordan's gaze met his without a word, conveying both clarity and the quiet insistence that respect must be granted where it was due. Guests and staff alike felt the shift ripple outward, the collective acknowledgment solidifying, and the lobby itself seemed to vibrate with the understated, undeniable force of Jordan Hayes' presence. Each subtle exhale, every calculated movement, reinforced the certainty that authority was not always measured in volume, but in presence, composure, and the unyielding assertion of truth, leaving the space suspended in the poised anticipation of what was about to follow. The atmosphere in the lobby shifted subtly, a current of anticipation threading through every corner as Jordan Hayes allowed the space to register the full extent of his presence. Vincent Cole shifted uneasily, his shoulders stiff, glancing repeatedly at the verification monitors, each subtle ping reinforcing what the room already knew. Jordan's authority was complete, undeniable, and beyond dispute. Guests who had been quietly observing began leaning forward slightly, their eyes scanning the room, phones discreetly lifted to capture the scene, each subtle movement adding to the quiet momentum of realization that was building like a wave. Jordan's gaze moved deliberately across the security personnel, noting every expression of hesitation, every microreaction of acknowledgment, conveying the weight of past experience and the inevitability of respect without a single word. The junior officer adjusting the camera focused on the small gestures, a slight step backward, a narrowing of eyes, the exchange of uncertain glances, each one marking the subtle surrender of assumed authority to the calm and measured presence of Jordan. The polished floors reflected the soft overhead lights, echoing the tension that seemed to pulse in slow motion, the lobby itself feeling as if it had paused to witness the unfolding clarity of control. Jordan shifted his stance slightly, a motion so minimal that it could have been missed, yet it carried a gravity that rippled through the room. every person sensing the imperceptible but absolute command radiating from him. The verification system chimed softly, a confirmation that reverberated more through the consciousness of the staff than through the space itself, signaling that every attempt at obstruction had been nullified by the incontrovertible truth of Jordan's clearance. Whispers rose gently among the security team, questions asked in muted tones. He really is the owner. And yet the statement carried an undeniable weight, acknowledging a power that had always existed but had been underestimated. Jordan's hands remained relaxed at his sides, every subtle breath steady and controlled, radiating assurance, and with each moment, the room shifted further, the former energy of control dissipating into recognition of the authority that he embodied. The guests, previously passive, now adjusted in their positions, leaning slightly to better witness the interactions, sensing the unfolding of a moment where decorum, quiet power, and clarity of status had supplanted assumptions, protocol, and hesitation. Jordan allowed the silence to stretch, a strategic pause that emphasized the inevitability of the acknowledgment he had commanded, every subtle micro-expression in the room registering the shift. The lobby had transformed, the energy now charged with understanding, anticipation, and the quiet awe of those who had just witnessed the subtle but absolute realignment of authority, leaving the scene poised on the edge of the next moment, a space in which recognition, compliance, and the acknowledgement of presence were now aligned with the undeniable truth of Jordan Hayes' power and control. Jordan Hayes paused for a heartbeat, letting the verification alerts continue to blink across the monitors, each one a silent assertion of his legitimacy and command. The security team shifted uncomfortably, their prior certainty replaced by subtle signs of unease, hands lingering near devices they no longer needed to manipulate. Guests who had been standing quietly at the edges of the lobby now leaned in slightly, some raising phones to record the evolving situation, capturing each expression of astonishment, hesitation, and dawning recognition on the faces of the staff. Jordan's gaze moved deliberately from one individual to the next, eyes calm, yet commanding, silently conveying the expectation that respect and acknowledgement were due without being demanded. A junior officer, still holding a recording device, adjusted the angle, capturing the room as the shift in authority became unmistakable, noting the micro-expressions, the faltering smiles, the subtle retractions of posture, the small gestures betraying acceptance of the new hierarchy. The polished floors reflected the subdued light and the careful movements, amplifying the quiet intensity of the moment. Jordan remained perfectly still, every motion minimal yet deliberate, a presence so controlled that the entire space seemed to bend around his authority. Whispers spread gently, questions of recognition and affirmation threading through the room. "He is the owner," murmured one officer, another nodding almost imperceptibly, the quiet acceptance growing steadily. Jordan's eyes swept the lobby once more, a slow, deliberate scan that seemed to measure both the room and the awareness settling in, his composure reinforcing the subtle, yet undeniable power he carried. The verification system chimed softly again, confirming every assertion without a single interruption, each alert punctuating the growing realization that the previous assumptions of control were obsolete. Vincent Cole's shoulders tightened slightly, a shift in stance signaling reluctant acknowledgement, while the junior officers exchanged looks, the unspoken understanding of the unfolding situation passing silently among them. Jordan's hands remained at his sides, a demonstration of the calm confidence that carried authority through presence alone, each micro-movement weighted with purpose. Guests and staff alike absorbed the moment, some leaning subtly to observe more closely, their murmured comments blending into a background hum of recognition and awe. Jordan allowed the silence to linger, a strategic pause that emphasized the transition of influence and authority without a word, the room absorbing the quiet power that needed no announcement. The lobby itself seemed transformed, the polished surfaces reflecting the subtle, charged energy, every observer aware that this moment was a demonstration of control, presence, and unwavering identity, setting the stage for the inevitable shift in dynamics that would follow immediately and irrevocably. Jordan Hayes finally moved with intention, lifting his hand toward his phone to initiate the internal protocol that had been quietly prepared, the gentle glow of the screen illuminating his composed expression. The verification system responded immediately, lights flickering and beeping in confirmation of his clearance, each signal a subtle but undeniable affirmation that the control he had been asserting was now absolute and recognized by every connected system. Vincent Cole and his team stiffened, their previous confidence replaced with hesitation, glancing at one another as they processed the full implications of the protocol activation. The junior officer continued recording, hands steady, capturing the mix of awe, disbelief, and cautious respect on the faces of everyone present, including the guests who had been leaning in, their phones poised to capture every micro-expression of the unfolding scenario. Jordan's gaze swept across the room slowly, deliberately, acknowledging each person, allowing the quiet authority of his presence to settle fully into the space, the subtle shift in the air signaling to everyone that the ordinary rules no longer applied. The polished floors reflected the movements, the slight adjustments of feet, the tense but careful stances of the security team, all amplifying the still, commanding atmosphere that Jordan had created without a single raised voice. Whispers began to circulate softly, questions and quiet realizations mingling. He really is the owner. And another murmured in agreement. Everything is verifying him now. The murmurs reinforcing the transformation in the room from hesitation to acknowledgment. Jordan's posture remained calm, steady, every subtle shift measured, a testament to the controlled confidence that had carried him to this point, his presence unshakable and deliberate. The system continued to ping and flash in affirmation, a background rhythm that underscored the transition of authority, a silent chorus supporting the quiet dominance Jordan exercised over the space. Guests and bystanders, previously passive observers, now became witnesses to a moment where respect was not demanded but recognized through evidence, presence, and clarity, their attention unwavering as the subtle drama unfolded. Jordan allowed a pause, letting the weight of the situation fully register, eyes scanning once more across the room, taking in the reactions, the subtle nods, the glances exchanged between those who had previously assumed control, and allowing them to absorb the undeniable truth. Each breath he took, each minimal movement, reinforced the tension, the recognition, and the quiet assertion of identity and authority, leaving no room for misinterpretation or challenge. The room seemed suspended in the gravity of the moment, the polished lobby surfaces reflecting the soft lighting, the focused eyes, and the growing understanding that Jordan Hayes' presence and actions had irrevocably altered the dynamics, establishing an unspoken rule that power, once quietly asserted and fully recognized, could not be ignored, setting the stage for the final alignment and acknowledgement of authority that would soon complete the scene. Jordan Hayes finally stepped fully into the open space of the lobby, the subtle movement commanding the attention of everyone present, the polished floors reflecting the calm authority that radiated from him. Vincent Cole and the senior security staff hesitated, glancing at each other, realizing that the situation had shifted irreversibly and that any prior assumptions of control no longer applied. The soft hum of the verification systems pulsed steadily, a quiet reminder of the absolute confirmation of Jordan's clearance and his undeniable position of authority. Guests in the vicinity leaned forward subtly, their phones raised to capture the scene, whispers spreading through the group as the reality sank in. The man they had underestimated was indeed the owner and fully in command. Jordan's gaze moved methodically across the room, meeting the eyes of each security officer, silently communicating the gravity of acknowledgement and the importance of recognition without the need for confrontation or force. The junior officer filming adjusted the camera, catching every micro-expression, the slight widening of eyes, the tentative nods, the hesitations that now marked the room as a space of new order. Jordan's posture remained calm, every subtle movement purposeful, demonstrating that authority did not require volume or aggression, but presence, composure, and the precise timing of action. The lobby itself seemed to respond, the lighting reflecting off the polished surfaces, casting long, deliberate shadows that emphasized the weight of the moment, amplifying the tension and the quiet dominance that Jordan exercised. Whispers became murmurs, murmurs becoming soft acknowledgments as the staff and bystanders alike processed the reality of the situation, the shift from doubt to recognition spreading steadily, quietly transforming the energy of the room. Jordan's hand lifted slightly toward the interface, signaling for additional system verifications, each light and beep reinforcing the legitimacy of his authority and the futility of any hesitation or doubt. Vincent shifted once more, shoulders tightening, jaw set, his confident demeanor replaced with cautious recognition, while the junior officers and guests collectively acknowledged the shift, understanding that this was no ordinary interaction, but a demonstration of control, presence, and truth. The air was charged, subtle but undeniable, a rhythm of anticipation and clarity that pulsed through every corner of the lobby, each observer attuned to the quiet power that Jordan Hayes wielded effortlessly. The room was suspended in this precise balance, the mixture of respect, awe, and recognition settling into place, establishing the environment as one where authority and acknowledgement aligned fully with the undeniable reality of Jordan Hayes' position, leaving every person present aware that the next moments would solidify the transformation completely and irrevocably. Jordan Hayes finally allowed the room to absorb the full impact of the transformation he had orchestrated, standing at the center of the lobby with calm authority that radiated without the need for raised voices or overt gestures. The security team now shifted collectively, each member aware that their assumptions had been completely upended, and their previous posture of control had been replaced by subtle acknowledgement and cautious respect. Vincent Cole's expression betrayed the faintest hint of apprehension, the confident mask he had worn from the start replaced by recognition of the undeniable truth before him. The hum of the verification system continued steadily, a quiet but firm affirmation of Jordan's authority, each light and beep reinforcing what had already been silently communicated. The hierarchy of power in the lobby had been irrevocably altered. Guests who had been observing from a distance leaned slightly forward, their phones discreetly raised, capturing the subtle exchanges, the hesitant nods, the micro-expressions of surprise and acknowledgement on the faces of the security staff. Jordan's gaze swept methodically over the room, pausing on each individual long enough to allow them to absorb the weight of his presence, silently reinforcing the reality that respect and compliance were due without a single command. The junior officer continued recording, the camera catching every nuanced shift, a slight step back, the adjustment of hands, the subtle nods, and the flicker of recognition that replaced uncertainty with measured respect. Jordan's posture remained precise and deliberate, a demonstration of composed power, every motion weighted and purposeful, each subtle shift of balance reinforcing his control over the unfolding environment. The polished surfaces of the lobby mirrored the scene, reflecting the tense but controlled energy, each light casting shadows that emphasized the quiet drama unfolding. Whispers continued to ripple through the staff, questions and acknowledgments merging into a soft murmur that confirmed the recognition of Jordan's authority and the reality of the situation. Every observer, from the senior security officers to the guests at the edges of the room, felt the gravity of the moment, the subtle but undeniable transformation of the environment as Jordan Hayes' presence shifted the balance completely. Each subtle exhale, each careful step, every deliberate pause contributed to the quiet cadence of power, the realization that authority had been exercised fully and flawlessly without confrontation or noise. Jordan allowed a moment of stillness to linger, the silence itself acting as reinforcement, compelling acknowledgement through presence, clarity, and inevitability. The lobby was now suspended in this new reality, the observer's focus entirely captured by the composed and commanding figure at the center, and it was clear that the dynamics of control, recognition, and respect had been permanently realigned, setting the stage for the final resolution that would solidify the transformation completely and leave no doubt in the minds of all present about the depth and reach of Jordan Hayes' authority. The final shift in the lobby was subtle but absolute, as Jordan Hayes allowed the last waves of recognition to settle across the room. Vincent Cole and his security team, previously poised with an overconfidence that had defined the start of the interaction, now stood with restrained acknowledgement, each member's posture reflecting a cautious respect that had replaced doubt. The junior officer continued recording, capturing every final micro-expression, the subtle nods, the hesitant glances exchanged among the staff as the weight of the moment crystallized. Jordan's gaze moved deliberately, slowly, over the entire space, pausing just long enough on each observer to let them fully process the unspoken lesson. True authority requires neither force nor volume, only presence, clarity, and the inevitability of acknowledgment. The soft hum of the verification systems pulsed quietly, each light and subtle beep affirming his absolute clearance, providing a measured rhythm to the transformation that had taken place. Guests who had been observing now leaned subtly, their attention fully absorbed, some capturing the scene on devices, others simply watching, sensing the quiet magnitude of the change. Jordan's hands remained at his sides, his stance calm, deliberate, radiating controlled energy that required no theatrics, no confrontation, only the natural assertion of his position. The polished floors and reflective surfaces of the lobby mirrored the composed tension, the subtle play of light accentuating the gravity of the moment as the previous atmosphere of uncertainty fully yielded to recognition of his authority. Whispers spread gently through the staff and guests alike, fragments of acknowledgment and awe blending into a quiet chorus of understanding. He is in command, everything confirms it, as the realization became collective rather than individual. Jordan allowed a brief pause, the silence itself reinforcing the power of presence over the need for words. Every eye in the lobby locked on him, every observer sensing the shift that had transformed not just the interaction but the perception of control in the room. The security team now aligned unconsciously, steps and gestures measured, their prior assumptions dismantled, the previous hierarchy replaced by recognition of the undeniable authority before them. Each subtle exhale, each micro-movement, reinforced the quiet cadence of power that Jordan had maintained throughout, his calm, yet commanding presence proving the point that authority can exist without confrontation and respect can be commanded through presence and clarity alone. The lobby, polished and orderly, now seemed suspended in acknowledgment, every surface, every reflection, every attentive gaze bearing witness to the final, unassailable reality. Jordan Hayes had transformed the space, the people, and the understanding of authority itself, leaving behind a scene charged with quiet triumph, poised for the lingering impact that would resonate far beyond the walls of the lobby.